over the last couple of years, I've like developed some habits that I want to compound.
Yeah.
So as a result, I don't think I'm necessarily on a new year, new me. I'm more on a like, okay, volume 2, version 2, that kind of thing. Actually, on the topic of versions, that I really believe that like we transition through various versions of ourselves. If you could give the version of yourself a number, what version do you think you're on?
177.5, 3, 6, 7. No, I don't know. I think in terms of like maybe work and career, maybe like level 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I've been in it a while now, so not necessarily quite as seasoned as I probably would be. But
Why'd you say that?
I think like there's always more to learn. So I'll continue seasoning. But yeah, maybe level 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Adult life starts. When, in your brain, when did your adult life start? 18, categorically, 21?
Yesterday.
Adulting.
Yeah, no. Probably, you know what? I think maybe 29 is when it hit me.
Okay.
Yeah, like adulting. Like adulting.
Yeah.
Like, right, Julian, you're getting on now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what was the catapulting factor for that adulting starting? Yendy?
No, I think Yendy was before. I think the run up towards, I'm actually betting on my age, but the run up towards 30, that whole year, I just spent just really thinking about like what the last 10 years looked like and what I want the next 10 years to look like.
Yeah.
And it just came across to me that like, if I'm really gonna have to double down and level up if I'm gonna want to achieve half the things I want to achieve.
Yeah. I think that's an important evaluation, and I think that happens for so many of us when we touch that 30 point. I really would like to understand where that came from. Like, who was the person that initiated the discussion around being 30 years old? Like, who was that? And I hate to be sexist, but who's that guy? Who's that guy?
Yeah.
Because it's so young. One, in the grand scheme of life, but also in the grand scheme of like the average person's experience. I get that. Like, you can go through so much as a child. And when you're in your like early 20s, late 20s, there's loads of transitions you go through. But I think as a fully like embodied person, I actually think that starts happening at 30.
I agree.
When you've got like you're truly sure of like your core values, like who you are, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. There's still some lingering questions. I know I had some lingering questions around, like that piece of like, what do I actually want to do?
Yeah.
And I think when I rephrased the question to who do I want to become, it took some of the pressure off of like, right, do this, do that, as opposed to like the version of yourself that you want to become. What would she be doing? What would she be reading? Who would she be around? Like, what would she be eating? What would she be? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
All of that kind of stuff. So I think going back to like maybe it's not even going to be version 1 based on your adulting starting at 29, but take me back to the beginning of your life story. So for those of you that don't know, Julian is the founder of Yendy Skin, and I just want to learn a little bit more about your like family context.
Sure.
So were you born here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was born here. My mom had me quite young. She had me at 22.
Okay.
And she had postnatal depression when she had me.
Oh, wow.
But my grandparents at the time, her parents were living in Amsterdam. So she had me, and then before I turned 1, I actually moved to Amsterdam to grow up with my grandparents.
Oh, wow. So can you speak Dutch?
No, I can't.
So you got English while you were there all the time?
No. I actually did speak fluent Dutch up until I got back here when I was maybe 4 or 5.
Okay.
But I think that's kind of like early language acquisition, like it needs nurturing. So it was just me and my mom when I got back. So there was no one to really practice the Dutch with.
Okay.
So that was the first kind of 3-4 years of my life. And then like we grew up in a council flat, Upper Road, North London. And then it was really strict. My mom was like really strict. I'm the eldest.
Of how many?
Of 3.
Okay. All boys?
No, I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. My youngest is the sister.
Okay.
But I think I kind of set the whole trend of like or being born here and then going to Amsterdam, because my younger brother and sister then when they moved to Amsterdam as well.
Okay.
But by the time we were all here, I would have been maybe 8, 9, 10, and had all of my siblings around me.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like, school and go through school. So yeah.
Any core memories from school?
I was a bit of a chatbox, man.
Okay.
I don't think I was quite a troublemaker. I was like always on the edge of trouble. So I'd always like do
That's a good description.
on enough. And then the minute you get like the look or like you're about to get attention or you're about to, then I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
We both know I can't have my mom coming in.
Yeah. No, there's too much. Too much.
But I was always like, I think I was quite intrigued, and I was like just wanting to know more about things. So I was maybe a little bit of a nerd, but I also used to be very cheeky and used to chat a lot. So I don't think I came into like I don't really think I had much like educational confidence in my abilities until towards like the end of secondary school.
Okay.
And then college dipped back down, and then.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
Where do you think that came from? Like, is it a thought around it's not cool to be smart? Or
I think
I'm assuming you were smart, which is why I said.
I think I was pretty average.
Okay.
Like I was just intrigued and excelled in like various subjects. But I think everyone has like their favorite teacher in school. I had one or two that just did a really good job in instilling confidence in me.
Got you.
So like I remember my English teacher, he'd tell me, Julian, you write beautifully. And to hear that, like even if I didn't, what does that even mean? Like you say this about Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I mean, you're writing beautifully.
Yeah.
Cool. So now every single time I'm writing, I'm thinking, yo, like this is beautiful.
This is beautiful, yeah.
And that stayed with me throughout like uni, and so I always used to do like a lot better in dissertations and like written. Always used to do a lot better in like dissertations than I did in like written exams. I was confident in my writing
ability.
Yeah.
And that I think is key. And that affirmation from so young, and allowing it to carry you through.
And cement.
Yeah. And also not allowing it to be tainted by anything that you were maybe anything else you might have been told that wasn't an affirmation, because there's a theory that for every one bad thing someone says, you need 5 things to offset that bad thing. So it's good that, it doesn't sound, did anything negative try to sway you away from thinking, actually, wait, is my writing beautiful still? I don't know.
No, not that springs to mind.
Good.
Yeah, I think, what happened was I was in the second to lowest set for English initially in like year 9. And then we were just like nutcases. We were really, really bad. We used to drive teachers out to school. Like it was horrid. And then the solution from the department was to disband the class. So they just scattered us. Some of us ended up in this set, that set. I ended up in the top set with the head of English. But I don't know how that happened, because like the results weren't resulting up until that point. But you couldn't really I couldn't really behave the same way I was behaving in the class I was previously, because he was taking no shit.
Yeah.
So eventually I was just like, let me just double down. Actually, I'll start doing the work that he's asking me to do, and then from there,
rest is history.
Yeah, exactly. From there I started feeling it, and then he started digging my work, and then he was interested in like English and drama, and he'd like try and encourage me to give the same amount of like effort that I was giving in his class to other things. So yeah, man, I went back to see him after I left, and
I love that.
Yeah, man, good guy.
And he remembered you, and he
of course,
you.
So
I love that. And is there anything else? I guess from a education perspective, maybe when you got to uni, that really stood out. Was that your first time living away from home? Did you live away from home?
Yeah. I lived away from home for the whole 3 years. I think like I noticed really quickly that give me a dissertation or give me an essay to write, I can get you like a good grade. But if you ask me anything else, like it's just not gonna happen. So I think after like doing well in like dissertations and essays more than once, and actually feeling like I'd had more confidence in cracking the code, that's when I thought, okay, cool.
Yeah.
This is if I'm gonna get a decent grade, this is how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So.
And it sounds like you found your like strong skill early. So you're able to double down on that from early and actually like leverage the thing you're good at.
100%.
Because I know for me, historically I've been a person that likes loads of different things. And like when I put my hand to something, I think it's for me the jury's kind of out as to whether there's something that you're like just born to do, or it's something that with an intentional effort and like energy behind, you get incredible at.
Agreed.
I think there's things that you generally are drawn to in terms of like your passions and nature, but I think most of it is kind of where you're shaped and nurtured.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that from such an early age, writing was your not your North Star, but like your gold dust.
Yeah, 100%. It's something that you can hold on to. Like, if all else fails, at least you know that if someone asks you to write on this topic, or do research on this topic, you know that you can put it all together.
Yeah.
So, I think one of the things that helped is I used to fake doing homework. So, like, I used to get home from school, and sometimes there'd just be nothing to do. But I tell my mum that there was no homework that the teacher gave me. It's a madness. So I used to sit in front of the computer and like pretend. I used to do research basically.
Wow.
Just for half an hour as well, just to avoid the onslaught that they don't give you. And I think that helped because actually it was like I was to look like you was doing research. You have to be doing some research. So it's just the idea of like piecing things together. This makes sense to this. What this person has said relates very, very closely to what this person has said. Just bringing it all together, and it worked.
That is interesting. So what then made you not pursue a career that involved
writing? Good question. I mean, maybe later.
That's another era, maybe.
Yeah, who knows? Exactly. You asked me earlier. That's actually a very good one. No, I think I took an interest in other things, and like when it came to education and when it came to like studying, I knew that alright, cool, that's my bag. Like if I'm gonna, like I said, if I'm gonna pass this, if I'm gonna do well, just let me do the essays and the dissertations. That's how I'm gonna get through this. But then later on, it became like business. Like I just took an interest in business, not necessarily business, but it was this idea of like being able to start something or like have something in your brain and then watch it or like work at it for long enough for it to manifest into something. So
and I think that leads on to my next point around like an entrepreneurial spirit. Do you feel like you've always had that? Have you seen people in your family have like a business savvy way, or is that something you feel like you've had to develop over time?
I'd say a bit of both.
Okay.
So my dad is an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I watched him like do stuff, like build business. I think all of us are like, my mom's always like just hustled, like bought and sold, etc. to this day, and my dad very much is the same. But growing up, my dad was a franchisee for a African restaurant called Chicken Licken.
Okay.
And it was a South African brand. I don't know if it's still there. But I remember one time I came home from school and Mum said that he was going to South Africa. I was like, why South Africa? It's a bit random. But actually he was going to learn how to run a brand, and then he ended up taking it to Ghana.
Oh, sick.
So I kind of watched that whole process. And then he did it.
Do you remember how old you were around that time?
I was young, maybe 8, 9, maybe younger. And then I remember watching him do that and actually like build it. So again, he'd spoken about it, and then you go and it's this restaurant and people actually eat it, etc. And then I think the franchisee model didn't work, but he took the learnings from setting up a restaurant. And then he basically just took the staff and set up his own, and now it's the restaurant that he runs in Accra to this day. And now, so that's kind of, I think, how it started initially, just like watching him. We've always kind of just like liked to do stuff and liked to build stuff. I think there's always been that like interest in trying to do stuff and build stuff on the continent as well. So.
And how often do you go back to Ghana? Or how?
Now?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Last year I actually didn't go back at all.
Okay.
Between 2016 and 2022, at least once a year, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. So yeah, now I'm trying to I always say I have to spend my UK winters in Ghana and my UK summers in Ghana and the rest of the year in Ghana. So just trying not to be here as much as possible.
I hear it.
Businesses here, so
Yeah, I hear it.
so you know what? At uni, we tried to put on events.
Okay.
Yeah, I was that guy too.
Every guy. I know, did an event or something.
Yeah, honestly. But the thing is, I think for me, like for my friends, it was like, yeah, let's do events. But for me, it was this idea of like, let's try and actually, it's more than in it. And I think there was a little bit of a pride that I had in like, oh, we put this on and people are having a good time. And then from there, it's just like been nurtured and taken from there. So
yeah, that's cool. Any events you can remember?
Let's not go.
That's one of the things you don't want to talk about.
Yeah, let's not go. We did like traffic light parties.
Okay.
You know, like that era, like 2010. So it was like the end of like the funky era and the beginning of like Afrobeats. So
Okay.
we do like funky beats, Afrobeats,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So
Yeah, uni was a time.
yeah, man.
Uni was a time.
Yeah, or something.
Uni was a time. So moving up into like your early professional stage, in learning a little bit more about you, I know that you started a good butter company.
Yeah.
Was that early stage career? When did that happen?
That happened. I'd been working in my career for a little bit. That was like my first.
Okay.
I say my first entrepreneurial venture. It wasn't my first entrepreneurial venture. I'd started stuff and failed before, but I don't know where to go from here. I guess I used to knock on doors. I did door-to-door sales for like 3.5 years.
How was that for your? Because that, I think it really takes a particular type of person.
Yeah.
Because that, like, almost ego bruise is relentless. It's relentless.
It's different.
What kept you there for 3.5?
It was character building. But you know what? I just got really good at it.
Yeah.
And obviously it was incentivized if you could teach others how to do it at scale.
Yeah.
So leadership was a big part of it. So you teach people, you get really good at sales, you teach people how to do it, and then you get residual income from teaching people how to do it. And it was like a multi-level marketing company, so they teach people how to do it. So like I made decent money from that.
Yeah.
But that was like the early lessons. And actually I did feel that it was an opportunity for me to like expand myself. And also it was like a multinational company that flew me out to Spain.
Nice.
I was knocking on doors in New York at one point, like Queens, New York.
Nice.
Knocking on doors in Queens, New York with a London accent.
Yeah.
It was great.
People's doors opening.
Precisely.
People's doors
Are you
opening.
from London?
Really?
Yeah. Right.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then after that, what did you do after that? The good butter or something else?
And then I worked in startups.
Okay.
So that was like the first like big business that I tried. I say big business. First business that I tried to run that failed. So I came back, moved back to London. I was living in Essex at the time, moved back to London. And then I was like, you know what, the best use of my time right now, if I'm going to learn how to try and run a startup, would be to go and work for another startup. So my first startup that I worked for was like back in 2016. And it was an ed tech company. And this is before like tech got sexy.
Okay.
Before everyone said I want to work in tech, etc. And that's when I really began to understand like fundraising and the landscape and like who are the funders, and that company had just raised like a pre-seed round of like $1 million.
Oh wow.
And I had no clue. And actually I remember when I first started with said company, everyone there was like Oxford and Cambridge grads. And I felt incredibly inadequate. Like I wasn't meant to be there.
Yeah.
Like I'm the guy that used to knock on doors, and now you got me here with these intellects. And I remember my dad said something to me at the time. It's like, Julian, you're going to be there 6 to 8 months, and you're going to realize that these people aren't like as brilliant as you may think they are. Like, and common sense isn't common and all of those things. And he was entirely right, with all due respect to them. And then from there, I worked at Monzo for a short while.
Nice.
So that was like the transition from like sales, commercial to like more operational.
Okay.
But again, this is Monzo like when Monzo was Monzo beta. So like Monzo only had like a few hundred thousand users.
Yeah. Was that the time where they used to give you £5 to recommend something?
Yes, it was.
I had that.
Yeah. And the amount of people. Yo, Julian, I beg you.
I had that.
People used to love using me for that. Yeah. And then so after Monzo, but I took the job at Monzo because it was part-time originally, and they were like, you can work like flexibly, remotely, and out of hours.
Okay.
But then this is the L I took. When I sat in on the interview, they were like, we'll match your salary at your previous full-time job, just work out of hours. So my hours at Monzo at the time were 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Madness.
It didn't last too long, and that was when I was actually trying to start the Good Bar company as well. And then there was another startup I went to work for after Monzo. They were another kind of like fintech startup, but earlier stage.
Okay.
And that was minimum wage, but literally all of the things that I felt like I needed. So I needed the time, I needed a little bit of money to cover my expenses, and obviously I had Monzo on my CV, so they were like, yeah, just do the job. And I ended up being there until I left to do Yendy full time. So it was like I did that all throughout Good Bar before Yendy.
So take me, there's a few things that you said that I really want to pick up on. The Good Butter Company was what?
Yeah, so 2016 I went to Ghana, and then I just was the shea butter guy for a long time. You know, like, you know, you want Ghana, bring me some shea butter, buy off you, etc. So I was that guy for a long time. And then selling to family and friends, ended up selling like B2B and selling to like small businesses and like manufacturers as well. And then I was really kind of frustrated with the fact that I knew like the essence of this specific ingredient, and I also know the price that's being paid for them. And I was quite frustrated at the fact that some of these brands that I was selling to just didn't really capture the essence of the story. So the Good Bar Company was born out of that, where essentially I was like, I've got a decent supply chain. I'm starting to understand where these ingredients come from. Let me take some of these ingredients, put them in a box, and we literally, that's what we did. Like, we put shea butter in a box and we sold it. The thinking was actually to try and build out a treasure chest.
Yeah.
We were trying to do like a subscription. In my brain, I was like, okay, cool. If I can get 1,000 people to pay me £20 a month, I'm done.
Yeah.
But actually, two things. It was coming off the end of like the subscription box boom, and also that model works well when you're curating other brands. I was trying to put all of mine, exactly. So that model, I mean, there's room for it, and even what we're doing now, there's room for it. But I didn't see it working. And then I went on an accelerator with the Good Butter Company. Like, we entered the accelerator as the Good Butter Company.
Okay.
The idea was, how can we take what we've got and really try to learn? We had a few customers that we spoke to, etc.
Yeah.
And the idea was really to take the best parts of that original brand. So take the essence and the ingredients and the supply chain and the story and merge it with like functional actives that work, and consult with dermatologists and consult with people who actually knew what they were doing to actually formulate or bring about a range. And that's how that started.
That's how that started. That is that's interesting. And for those people that are considering an accelerator, just to go back to that point, what would you say are some of the benefits of doing something like that?
I mean, now that there's so many, but I think for me at the stage that we were at, like, we felt like we had something. We felt like we'd proven something. Like, we have someone who has paid money for this. So it's a lot of people go on an accelerator because they want money, and that it works sometimes, but you really need to go in with an open mind. But the benefit is that you've just got people like experts who have been in the game for a long time and can help guide you in the right direction and help maybe point and open doors to whether it be funders whether it be people in the industry or so. It was through like multiple accelerators and programs that we did that we met literally half the people that end up building the brand. So like designers and content people and people in the industry that later became like board support and board directors and things like that. So yeah.
And on the flip side, what would you say are some of the downfalls of doing something like that?
Good question. I think it's a lot of time. It's a time investment, especially if you're someone who's trying to balance like a full-time job. Trying to balance a full-time job and doing an accelerator that requires your time might not work. And also, once you've done one or two, a lot of the learnings become quite repetitive.
Got it.
So like one or two programs that, you know, help your business get from A to B. But after a while, it's like, you know, product market fit, learning how to do this, learning how to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of get it. And a lot of the information you read in books anyway. So yeah.
Okay, it's always good to look at both sides of things.
For sure.
And just circling back to a point you made before around you set up a few different businesses and failed. What for you constitutes failure, and what has shifted your perspective on failure
what failure is? I think at the time, when you set out to do something, you always have an idea as to what it could be or where you want to take it. And I think at the time, for maybe some of the other projects or things that I've started, I didn't really get going. So therefore it felt like a failure, because it was like this idea that you had didn't even materialize into anything tangible. But even then, there's like so many different levels, like making your first pound off something is one thing, and then you know, receiving your first package is another thing. And I think, like, to answer the second part of the question, that is it in itself. Like, you have to give yourself credit for the smaller wins. And I think now, because I guess it's easier to say now because there's actually something tangible. But in the process of like seeing little tiny milestones add up and add up and add up, it's like you can't really constitute it as a failure, because the mere fact that something has materialized from your brain is the success in the first place. Yet still there's still a battle, right? Because there's still a ultimate like goal, or like you still want to take it to as far as it can go. So I think what helps is, you know, like speaking to friends who are business owners and other founders as well. Like, it always helps. So.
I think community is important, and I think the competition with who we think we're supposed to be or what we're supposed to have done is where the disconnect often is. So now introducing Yendy into the fold. Talk to me about the name.
So the name it's named after a district in northern Ghana, not too far from where we source the raw ingredients that go into the ingredients. And the Good Butter Company initially was quite clunky, and people mistook it for food. Which was jarring, especially like when you're speaking to like funders and people. So the name Yendy ultimately is a district not too far from where we source the products, and it was like, it's originally spelled Yendi. So you've got like Tamale, and a little bit further up north you've got Yendy. And actually in Ghana, the name, like the place isn't held to the highest of regard. Like the idea of the name of the brand comes from somewhere close to where we source the ingredients. So
nice. And the journey into skincare, that based on the Good Butter Company, there was obviously an interest in skincare, but generally speaking, where has that come from for you?
I mean, I didn't wake up one day and say I wanted to start a skincare company. For me, it was all about like the supply chain initially. Shea butter is like a product that we always grew up using, and then with the previous brand, we sold shea butter and moringa oil and baobab oil. But again, there was not really a huge like understanding on what they did, etc. It was like, oh, customers like them. So, but actually the journey into skincare, I feel like it's one that I'm still on. And actually I feel that one that most of our customers are still on as well. Like when we speak to people now or speak to customers, a lot of them say that skincare is not a destination, it's a journey, like, and 100%. The journey of trying to achieve like 100%. Radiant skin or skin that makes you feel confident. So for us now, like, the journey, I guess, continues, but ultimately it was one that like kind of was naturally born from the frustration around supply chain, the frustration around not being able to find like efficacious products that actually work. Pricing as well was always a big thing. Like we found that people wanted to buy products that obviously first and foremost were functional, high performing and worked, but secondly actually meant something and came from the right people and were sourced fairly in the right way. And then from there it's just kind of gone to where it is.
And I think that's important. But why was that piece important? Because I think creating a skincare product, especially because the market is huge.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's easy to add to the conversation as opposed to enhance the conversation. I think the supply chain intention is really important to know. But why was that, like adding female farmers to that supply chain, important to you guys?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a story that is not unfamiliar to most. You've got huge brands that talk a lot about like their fair sourcing, and you've got big brands like Lush, and Anita Roddick started the conversation with The Body Shop back in I think the 80s or the 90s. But I think for us, like we always say it internally, like it's not just like a campaign that we run every year. It's actually an ethos. And I think for me, like there was a real frustration at the fact that I could go to Harrods and spend 50, 60, 70 pounds on a 50ml moisturizer. But then the person that's made a couple, at least 3 or 4 of the raw ingredients that have gone into that moisturizer gets paid like pants, like less than 20p, some of them per day.
Wow.
It's horrid, like it's pants. And I think for me, like being so close to the supply chain and initially like selling shea butter to other people and to businesses as well, like there was just something, I couldn't be that guy to now go and do the exact same thing, especially when like I felt like the essence of the story was so meaningful, and that people, when moving into an era where consumers are becoming so much more conscientious about not just like what their products do, but where their products come from. It felt like that's,
and who makes them
more importantly as well. So that's our biggest challenge at the moment. It's like we're trying to build a brand that is like functional, high performing, great skincare products that people love, but also at the same time there is this like this like chip on my shoulder, especially of trying to like change a broken, clunky system that hasn't really served anyone for a long time. And that's a feat. And in the industry, it's so interesting because everyone talks about it, and it's almost, it grinds my gears. Everyone talks about like fair sourcing, but like there aren't many brands that can tell you where their ingredients come from. There aren't many brands who can tell you the village that the specific ingredient was sourced. And I think it's important.
I think it's integral. And in terms of fair sourcing, for the like, in layman terms, does that mean you tell everyone where everything comes from, and do you have to make a claim about that? And where does that have to be put? On product, on site, everywhere?
This is another thing as well, because like every few years there's a new like stamp of approval that is usually a company that you will pay for a few £100s for them to allow you to use their stamp of approval.
Got it.
I won't say any specific names. So for us, it was like, listen, what can we do and what can't we do? Within beauty, there has to be a level of transparency anyway. You turn behind and you turn a product backwards and you have to see the INCI list, etc. You have to see what ingredients are in it. For us, what we've done is the whole formulation isn't made up of just African superfoods. So we trademarked Yendy approved. And for every product that we sell contains at least one Yendy approved African superfood. So for our cleanser, it's moringa oil. For our moisturizer, it's shea butter. For our toner, it's hibiscus. And for our bestseller, the serum, it's the baobab oil. So those are the 4 specific ingredients that we've worked with farmers on, and we know where they're sourced from, and we can tell you. And I think for us, like, there is still more to do. Like, we know where they come from, and we communicate it to our customers, and we try to tell the story of how they're sourced and where the ingredients come from. But actually, like, how far could we go? Like, how cool would it be if you picked up a product somewhere and then scanned a QR code and we told you every single thing, in terms of where it's come from, the lady. If you could even find it whereby it might not be able to do this at scale, it might be difficult, but the person who sourced that ingredient, like, being able to say thank you for buying the product, you know?
Yeah.
Again, it's this like fine balance of like how much of it is sustainability versus function, high performance, and does the product work? And over the last maybe 18 months, we've realized that actually it's the latter first. The products need to work, and people need to love the products first. What will make them keep buying is the fact that we do all of the other stuff. So yeah, that kind of makes my job like 100% harder, because I'm constantly having to battle the two things, but all the while more worthwhile as well.
Yeah. So. I'm curious to know how you identified what the superfood should be, or what they are. Shea butter, especially as a black woman, I think most of us can identify with the importance of that ingredient. All of our face was shiny growing up.
Of course.
But the other ingredients, so like the hibiscus, the baobab, and the
moringa.
You almost
caught me there for a second.
What was there research that you did personally around those ingredients in terms of testing? Was there like journals that you guys read around like what those benefits are, like the historical context of that? Like, how did you decide those? Because I'm mindful they're not the only superfoods. Of course. What made you narrow in on those? At all?
I think there's a few like angles to this. The supply chain and what's like possible. Okay. And then like what's functional. So what can be used within a formulation in a meaningful way. Got it. So I'll start with like the supply chain piece. Luckily we found that the suppliers of the people, well, the ladies who were sourcing and harvesting the shea butter, the way it works is like networks. So you'll have like clusters of women who mainly only work in shea butter, working very close to, or maybe the neighboring village being women who source moringa, or both, etc. We've been like quite meticulous, and we've released products quite slowly. So it was the serum for a long time, the antioxidant power serum, and it was unintentional, but we thank God, like looking back in hindsight, because the antioxidant power serum did really well. Customers loved it. And then the serum came second, because shea butter after baobab, and then that did really well, and then people started buying it as a combo. And then we really wanted to make a splash with the next two, but that's what the network kind of allowed for. So it was moringa. So once we established what was available, then it was a case of actually understanding the science behind it. So this is where like working with dermatologists and working with our manufacturers was important. So I can say like almost what can you do with moringa? We've seen like some beauty brands use some of these ingredients, but like how can this be meaningful and useful in a facial skincare product, for example? If you're going to tell me that shea butter is an emollient, and as you say, like we all grew up using it, it's because it's really high in vitamins A and C and super like rich and helps your skin. Can you tell me something similar for moringa oil? Can you tell me something? Moringa is like a huge antioxidant as well, so it's massively protecting, hence the reason why we put it in a cleanser. Similar to the hibiscus as well, and the same works with baobab. So
no, that's interesting. That's really interesting and really impressive. And in talking about the range, we have it here. So I'm going to hold these two, and if you take the others. Sure. And I just want to have a conversation about the product itself. Yep. So design, color palette, because your logo is white. Yeah. But obviously everything's where did this color combination come from?
So we worked with an agency. Okay. And it was African inspired. Is like the first thing I told them basically is like, I want it to be African inspired, but I don't want to see kente. Like I don't want to see the typical.
It doesn't need to give me.
Like it's just very, very. There's very typical. Yeah. So what other ways can Africa be celebrated and represented, And the first thing we went to is color, like use of color and being punchy and bold and unapologetic.
Yeah.
So we tested and looked at a few different things. It was like, no, the blue on blue works, the orange on orange works.
Yeah.
And the pink and green, at least for the first range. And I guess now it's a case of like, are we going to build like a vertical range or a horizontal range? So like, is it going to be a range of moringa based products to follow
I was about
on?
to say, what's the difference?
Yeah, or are we going to try and build like a whole different range of products that are just totally different colors? Do we want to over confuse it, etc.? Right now, the key focus is obviously we've got the full range now, so we'll see. But
nice. It's really beautiful. I actually use it, especially the products I've used so far are the serum and the moisturizer.
Yeah, you know what? First time I saw your name pop up and I was like, I recognize that name, like. And then I saw it pop up again. Like
I'm going to share it and I'm going to tag it.
Yeah, no. It's good. We appreciate it. So yeah, those are the first two. Was the serum first, and then the moisturizer did really well. And it got end of last year, 2023. It was like Vogue do a list of the top beauty products of the year. So it was one of the best beauty products of 2023.
That's massive.
It was actually the only moisturizer on that list.
Oh, wow. That's massive.
So to me, it's the best moisturizer
on the list. Absolutely. The maths make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and if anyone asks me, I say, there it is.
This is it.
And then, the next two, it's been interesting. I think like it's still quite early. So we only launched it towards the end of last year. But so far so good. Like people like it, and I think most importantly, we wanted to make sure that we were completing a range. So far so good. Customers who love the superpower deal, what you're holding, have said that they like the fact that it's cleanse, tone, serum, moisturizer, and they wanted a simple, quick, effective routine that helps them solve whether it be like dark marks and circles and wrinkles as well. Like so. Nice.
And then the development of the other two products. What made you go with those two as a stage, as opposed to like, I don't know, a night cream, or a
SPF,
or an SPF,
or face mask,
or a mask, or a Tret, or an eye cream,
I think we were keen to finish the routine.
Okay.
We were keen to like the antioxidant power serum was like the staple. It did really well. The moisturizer I think the moisturizer kind of helped us gain respect in like the industry. Like, oh, okay, these guys know what they're doing. It's not just like a cute story. And then it was the case of let's at least finish the range. Also, as well, as response to like conversations that we're having with like potential retailers and even online. Like, if we want to try and sell a kit, a 4-step routine, makes sense rather than like we've got a moisturizer and we've got like a face mask and we've also got like our body kits,
it just feels disjointed.
Exactly. So we wanted to kind of complete the range first, and then now looking forward, outside of like trying to move them and getting customers to fall in love with the range, now it's a case of deciding what direction we want to take, and even that in itself is a whole different beast in itself, right? Like, so
what's your favorite product? If you're on it, let me phrase the question differently, because I know you might say it's difficult because one needs the other. If you could only take one skincare product and you're on a desert island for 2 weeks, obviously if you're on a desert island, it's sunny, you're going to be close to water. What's the product of this collection?
As of late, it's the toner.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Because it's got 5% niacinamide, and niacinamide is 5% is punchy, and it works. But like,
what's niacinamide good for?
Niacinamide is good. It's like really, really good for hydration.
Okay.
But for me, I purged, so I started using it, and I've got quite sensitive skin.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm purging. This is not good.
It's not the intended outcome.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly. But then it was a case of actually like just keep using it. And then the purging cleared.
How bad was the purging?
It wasn't horrid. It wasn't horrid. It wasn't like spots that left like, it was like really small spots.
Okay.
And I noticed that it wasn't anything else I was using. It was the toner. And at one point we were going to reformulate. But when we spoke to our dermatologists, they were like, listen, like purging is actually quite normal, especially if it's a new skincare product. And also they were asking me, have you ever used a toner with 5% niacinamide in it? And the answer was no. So they would just give it a shot. So we're aware that like the toner might actually very simply similar to all of the products, similar to any product. It might not be for everyone. But I think for us, like it works. And yeah, to answer your question, it would be the toner if you ask me right now. So
it's a good suggestion. So you're washing your face with the seawater. Is that right?
See, that's where we get into the function. Yeah, so washing my face with seawater, and then
you're exfoliating with the sea. You're washing your face with the seawater, maybe exfoliating with the sand,
exactly,
and then you're toning with that.
Precisely. Okay. And I'm instead of a cotton bud or a cotton pad, I'm using a leaf. Exactly.
Okay. So you can be on a desert island.
I mean,
it's looking like
I'm gonna have to. I just need to. It's pink and bright pink, so I need to keep it away from monkeys. Or or
rush off, it's gonna be dry.
My monkeys are gonna want to look after their skin as well. So.
It's gonna be dry.
Yeah.
So I think this, creating a skincare collection it's becoming more of a conversation across genders in terms of having a skincare routine. How has it? We can put these back up here now. How has it been? Being a man that leads this conversation, and 2, integrating more men into the conversation around the importance of having a skincare routine. Yeah,
it's been interesting. I think we were talking earlier, I was like, I've been fairly faceless since we started. It's not really been intentional. And I guess to answer the question specifically, like it's been interesting because there is an element of not wanting to stand here and make claims of being a total expert on absolutely everything. But there is an element of like thought leadership and expertise, especially when it comes to like formulation and understanding what the ingredients do and how they work together. The biggest thing for me is like we're just speaking to our customers. That's what helps. And actually it's reassuring when we speak to customers, especially like our power users, so customers who have spent hundreds with us over a short period of time because they just keep coming back. And we're asking them why they buy. And then there's always like a really nice and pleasant surprise that it's me, the founder, like that they're speaking to. Like, this is brilliant. And in terms of the conversation around like bringing more men into it, I think like the ship has already sailed. It's more us like wanting to get on the ship. Like we've had a few features in GQ.
Nice.
And whenever we've been featured in GQ, like we've seen that customers come and buy the products. We like to think of the brand being pretty unisex. But still to this day, I mean, even though I was saying that the ship has sailed, still to this day, the majority of people who buy our products, like it's still 80 to 90% women. So yeah, it's an interesting feat, I guess.
And in terms of what's next for Yendy?
Good
question. Is there anything you can share? Are you keeping it face? Are you moving to body? Are you...
you know what? It's been... to be brutally honest, we exhausted like a lot of our resources getting the next 2 products across the line. And we're really grateful because now it means that there's a lot of things before us. There's retail conversations that we can have that we couldn't have before because most of the retailers that we were speaking to were telling us that we love your brand, we love your concept, we love everything that you're doing, but with 2 products, if we're going to put you somewhere, you're probably going to get drowned out by other brands because they have bigger ranges. From an online kind of D2C perspective, direct to consumer, again, like we could put money into ads, but we only had 2 products to sell. So even if people are buying the 2, like we barely break even or maybe sometimes even lose money. So like right now it's exciting because there's the products that we have, and I won't say what's next entirely because you're right, there's like different categories, there's body, there's hair, and there's also like different specific products that we could do. I think for me the most important thing is just speaking to our customers and figuring out what it is that they want. Like we launched 2 new products off the back of people saying that they wanted a routine. So far people have said they would love us to do an SPF. See the face as well. Customers have also talked about like face mask as well.
Yeah.
Body is interesting because of the ingredients and how rich a lot of them are.
Yeah.
So if we were to go into body, then doing something, especially in the winter and things like that.
Yeah.
Hair is a different category, but it's a close category. It's not one that I know that I'd want to venture into. I've had people ask me to do a beard oil. I've said no. Because I just feel like it's a bit of a different category altogether.
Okay.
I think if I was to do beard, I'd do like a beard brand outside of Yendy or so yeah.
Nah, okay. We'll watch this space first of all.
Yeah, for sure.
And from a business point of view now, just diving into that a little bit, you've mentioned a lot, like it's really important to listen to your customers. It's really important to listen to your customers.
Like I say, I didn't wake up and say I wanted to start a skincare like brand. It kind of came into this thing and people started believing in what it was that we were doing. And then at the core of it was customers that believed in what we were doing. It was customers that were saying we love the products. It was customers that were saying I want to buy for myself and Christmas is coming, I want to buy for a friend. And I think customers are at the core of absolutely everything that we do. Like it's vital. And if you're not going to listen to them, then you don't really have a business because they're the ones buying the product in the first place. So yeah, that's what I'd say to anyone. It has to be about them. Like you have to kind of be religious in terms of, and we do it to this day. We try our best to like cold call. Well, I won't say cold call, but like cold email and get their numbers and try and understand what it is that the amount of customers that like have me on WhatsApp. And so yeah.
Do you have a separate phone for that? Or
no, unfortunately.
So you've got customer 257
alongside. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's important. I think customers drive the direction as much as, I think it kind of boils down to that ethos that like, there's this idea that entrepreneurship is working for yourself. But in terms of you not having anyone in the traditional sense above you, you actually do work for someone.
Absolutely.
You work for your customer.
Absolutely.
And I think naturally they are the people that drive what happens.
Absolutely.
What doesn't happen, what lands, what doesn't. And in terms of lessons that you've learned as a business owner, what would you say are 3 of the most poignant things that you have, you've learned?
Good question. In no particular order.
Yeah.
I guess the first thing I'll say is ego is the enemy. It's a book that I read by, I think it's Ryan Holiday.
Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah, Ryan Holiday. Yeah. That book, like, just the essence of what he was saying, it was like we all have this like internal belief that what we believe is correct, and it's not gonna support you, especially if you're trying to build a business as well. Like you need to be able to listen to people, you need to be able to understand what people are saying. Of course, like stick to your guns on certain things, but for the most part, like be open and willing and kind of get over yourself is the important thing. And I think like I mentioned a little bit earlier about kind of being faceless to date, and I think that there was an element of intentionality there, because ultimately the idea was to make it more about the essence of what it was that we were trying to build, rather than, hey guys, look at me. I guess that was like up to date now. Like we've released the new products and like there's a bit more of a brand, so I feel a little bit more comfortable showing my face and guys. And the second lesson I'd say is again around like customer. Like you have to obsess over them, and if you don't obsess over them, they're not going to pay you, and therefore you don't have a business. Third thing I would say in terms of lesson is, this is more of a recent one, but there are other things like life is so much more than just the thing that you're doing. Like I feel like me personally, like it's been a real trying to learn how to allow the business and what it is that I'm doing to supplement my life, as opposed to being obsessed with it entirely. Because like I've got a family, like I've got loved ones, and there are other things that I enjoy as well. But like kind of wanting to cement myself more into this sense of like, this is what I do, but it's not who I am. And really trying to live that. And that in itself is like a journey.
Yes.
Especially when you've been on it for
so
a long
long.
time. Yeah.
And how are you finding that separation? Are there things that you're actively doing to be like, right, I've got cut off, I don't work after this time? Is it that boundaried, or are you still trying to figure out what that separation is?
I'm still trying to figure out, for sure. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out, because even though like we are still very much an early stage business, and
how long has Yendy been running now?
Yendy has been running just under 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I say just under 2 years. Just under 2 years. But Good
Feels
Butter.
like I've known it for time.
Yeah. But the Good Butter company started 2018.
Okay.
And actually, so it was the same Instagram as well. So it was pretty
you just carried the community over.
But yeah, so we moved the community over. I'm just trying to think of actually when our actual birthday is. Yeah, or just over 2 years. But it's no more than like 3 years anyway. So.
Wow. I feel like I've known the brand for ages.
Yeah. No, it's because year 1 was the serum. Year 2 was the moisturizer, and we're at the beginning of year 3 now with the cleanser and the toner. So.
No, the development's been strong.
Yeah, man. It's been
strong.
a labor of love.
Love it.
It's been a labor of love. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's bloody hard.
And what have you learned about leadership?
Oh man. I think like there's a few different angles and ways to go about it. And I think like ultimately I don't like the idea of work. People have their workplace dramas and blah, oh, my manager was an idiot, my manager's this, I just don't want to be that guy. So it's more of a case of, this is a team. We're not family.
Yeah.
Like, this is...
That's a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact.
You said that,
but
we're not doing that.
No. We are a high-performing team, and we work hard together. And I will lead from the front. However, like, I'll put my hands up, ego. If I don't know anything, if you ask me something I don't know, I'll tell you. Like, I don't know. And again, a lot of this has been a learning process. So there's been a dozen things that I don't know, and there's been so much that I'm still learning and trying to understand. And also I think the idea of like just leveraging other people's talents and other people's skills and life experiences as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm grateful. Like, it's still like it's me and a few VAs, and then we've got a board, and just the people around us, like, and even friends, and like that. It's all been incredibly helpful to help us get to where we are. So, yeah, man, fingers crossed. God willing, we continue.
You will. And in closing, for someone who wants to start a business, what would you say is like the essential thing to constantly keep in mind?
To anyone who wants to start something, like, what I would say is that for God's sake, just start. Like, we do so well at sitting on ideas and talking about what it is that we want to do, and I'm like, I'll put my hands up, and I am and have been that guy on a multitude of occasions. And even now we've got Yendy running, I'm still ultimately sometimes that guy, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. But like, you have to start, like, do something, anything, like just start, just start something. And a lot of us are like really obsessed with this idea of like, oh, like, but I want it to be a certain place before I start to show it to the world. And I totally understand that, because it was the same for Yendy for ages. But I think you have to do something. Like, you have to make a move. Otherwise, it's just gonna stay in your head. Yeah, it's gonna stay in your head.
And do you think you've now adopted that mentality in other areas of your life? Just do something? Or do you think you've always been like that in other areas, but I've definitely in business it's not so much?
No, I've definitely not always been like that at all. Procrastinator, like jersey on my back. No, but I'd say it's not just in business. I think there is just a level of just trying to understand where you are, what resources you have, and trying to make do with what you have, and trying to do what you can with what you have. That you have to use like what is in your hands.
Absolutely right.
And more time, like, there is more in our hands than we give ourselves credit for. But at the same time, like, it's not easy. Like, it's the ghetto out here.
Yes.
Like, it's really, 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 really hard. And I won't ever kind of shy away from, you know, emotionally, physically, like it's labor intensive and it's different from doing something else. And so I guess it's just a balancing act, and having good friends and family definitely helps.
To support.
Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. So in terms of following the journey, how can people do that?
Sure. At Yendy Skin on Instagram, yendyskin.com, Yendy Skin on all digital platforms. And then myself, I'm on and off Instagram, but it's just my name, Julian Boaitey. You can find me on LinkedIn and everywhere else. So.
And you're going to be posting more? Is this a exclusive announcement of that?
Of personal or
are you back? Are you?
Yeah, maybe soon. No, absolutely. I think you know, like when you've been off a social platform for a long time, even like with LinkedIn, like you kind of like assess what it is that you want to do and who you want to be again, coming out the gates again. So a lot of this time is that. And I think for me, like doubling down and focus is so important. I was saying to you earlier that like when I'm on socials, like I'm pretty like scatty. I'm posting everything, and I think the last few months trying to get these 2 products across the line have been like just the total focus, and having that time and space where instead of picking up my phone to use Instagram, I could think about something that like an initiative or something that I wanted to do to get or actually do a task needed to get that's been really helpful. So absolutely, sometime soon.
Love it.
But yeah,
good. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
It has absolutely been a pleasure. And so Yendy Skin everywhere. And if you haven't already tried the product, like I have tried the product, and I can categorically say my mum also uses it.
Glad to hear
so
it.
It's cross-generational.
Yeah, for sure.
But I can categorically say it's a staple part of my skincare routine. So I'm really I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed because there's so much in the market.
It's
and
loud.
There's so many claims that this works, that works, and I've on my own skincare journey, I tried, like I was telling you off camera, I actually started off using the Carbon Theory and also the Ordinary. Both of those products worked exceptionally well. So I kind of thought, but actually what drew me to this was the color palette and also the your supply chain. So that story is like, I guess my point is, don't underestimate just how important that piece of the story is, because as much as people want to buy the product, there are conscious, as you said, like more conscious consumers these days that actually want to understand what does that funnel look like and how does my pound contribute to an additional greater good. And that leads me actually to the last thing, which is around sometimes businesses start, they generate all the revenue, all the profit, boom, boom, boom. They're making 8-9 figures, and then they think, do you know what? We're going to do a community initiative, or we're going to do a charity initiative, or we're going to do a do a CIC underneath, or do a something. Why was it important at the beginning to think about how can what we do here give back there?
We've set up the Yendy Foundation.
And
it's a NGO that's been set up in Ghana to facilitate social impact projects that work as a byproduct of what we do commercially here. Like I said, I didn't wake up one day and say I wanted to start a skincare company. Like this ultimately started because we wanted to make a positive social impact. As a byproduct of that, making like functional, high performing products obviously is a huge part of what we do. But it was important. I mentioned earlier about like, you know, brands treat that story, which many people know, as a nice campaign that they can run once a year, or they can fly out to Africa and meet their suppliers, not their suppliers, their suppliers' suppliers, and and obviously when you go to Africa, they'll be nice to you because like, wow,
Yeah, you
you're
came all this
someone new.
way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But to do it again and again and again, and 2019, the first time I went to visit our supply chain, I was that guy. Like, I was like, they were kind of looking at me like, oh, this is cute, this guy. But when they saw me again, it was like, okay, you're back again.
Yeah.
And then again, and then again. Now they kind of look at me like, oh, this guy again.
Yeah.
Like, raw, like,
Yeah.
okay,
He's
this
about
is,
it.
yeah, exactly. So, and again, that's how you nurture relationships, right? It's like that consistency. So, yeah, we've got no intention of stopping. And also, like, we've been able to support like the building of a school. With the
incredible.
Yendy, through the Yendy Foundation, and we don't document and or do a good enough job talking about the social impact element of the business, and that's something that we definitely want to do more of.
Yeah.
Because how it all ties in together is really important, but it's the essence. And it's like it's the heart of what we do, and it's the heart ultimately as to why and how I started, and then everything else comes as a byproduct.
After that.
So yeah.
Love it. Well, thanks, Julian.
Thank you.